All right, so before we actually start the exam review, since this is our last time meeting together in person as a group, I do just want to say that, first of all, thank you all for a wonderful semester. It's obviously been a weird semester. It's been a unique semester for all of us. But because of y'all's behavior and you guys actually taking this seriously, we were able to actually finish the semester together. And so I am appreciative of that. I'm not sure if you guys are, but I know that Flagler as a whole is very appreciative that all of you did your part to help keep everything under control on campus. Obviously, the point of this class in general, from a strictly academic standpoint, was to teach you sociological theories of law and to actually teach you how certain aspects of our legal system are kind of explained through a more sociological lens. And that is absolutely true on its face, what the point of this class was. However, I also hope that you guys learned throughout this semester to challenge things, right? The point of this is don't just accept things for what they appear on their face. Are there underlying motivations behind certain ideas? Are there consequences to behaviors that we might not think about, right? Manifest versus latent consequences is one of the singular most important things that we talked about this whole term, because throughout life, you are going to make decisions. And are there consequences to those decisions that we might not intend to make, right? Even decisions that seem as innocuous as where you're going to go to college or what you're going to do after graduation have potential to affect the whole trajectory of your life, who you're going to marry, who your friends are going to be, where you're going to live, right? And so even though decisions are made with one motivation in mind, we always need to think through and rationalize and talk about what are these latent underlying consequences to any action or inaction in our society. And that's something that is exceedingly important that I hope we learn, right? Is these critical thinking abilities to say, on its face, they say this, whoever they is, but what has potential to happen as a result of this one seemingly innocent decision. So with that being said, let's talk about the final exam. Exact same format as the midterm. On Canvas, multiple choice, true, false. You have 60 minutes to do it, and it is open from today up until December 3rd. If at any point during the semester, or not the semester, that time frame, you want to take it, please do. If you decide after Thanksgiving you just want to get it done so you can focus on all your other exams, it is open and it's available for you to do that. If you decide you have a bunch of work that's due that you have to get done and you want to wait until December 3rd at 10 o'clock at night to take it, feel free to do that also. It really is up to you however you want to do it. Obviously, it's a question bank, so you might not get all the same questions as any of your friends. Also, the question answers are shuffled. So please don't think, and I'm kind of tilting my hand a little bit here. If you are even going to attempt to cheat, please, please, please don't just get whatever answers. You will do very, very poorly if you just copy someone else's like AC, AD, AV, right? That will go very bad. So please actually take the exam, read the exam, and answer questions. There are some questions from the book as well as questions from the PowerPoint slides. And so be ready for those. The vast majority of questions are obviously not opinion questions, they're fact-based questions. And so from the readings, I know, for example, right, in the midterm, you had questions about the man from the country versus the gatekeeper and stuff in that Kafka reading. None of the questions were, what is your interpretation of this reading? It was, from this perspective, what does this mean, right? So that's how any of the book questions will be asked. There will also be questions like, for example, what is discretion? If you recall in the lecture on discretion, there was discretion as judgment, discretion as liberty, discretion as license. You need to know what all of those different types of discretion are. And I might ask a question of, in this example, what type of discretion is being shown, right? And so you'll have to be able to apply that. There also might be hypotheticals, like if a police officer is driving down the street and chooses to ignore the person who rolled through the stop sign in favor of going to investigate a vehicle break-in, what type of discretion is being shown. So we talked about juries, we talked about lawyers, we talked about police. You should know the general kind of thrust of all of those different career fields, right? With law enforcement, we talked about different styles of policing. You should know details about those different styles of policing. With lawyers, we talked about the education of lawyers. We talked about how lawyers bill. We talked about the different types of lawyers, corporate lawyers versus government lawyers, right, versus private lawyers. What are the differences between those lawyers? We spent quite a bit of time talking about jury nullification, but also about how juries are a political institution as well as a legal institution. How are juries a political institution, and what arguments were made for that? I'm like literally looking at your exam right now. Theories like feminist legal theories and critical race theory and critical legal studies. We talked about those throughout the course of the semester. And as a reminder, this is everything after the midterm. This exam is not cumulative. It's just from the midterm on. And so knowing those kind of theories of law creation, right? Like, critical legal studies that says there's nothing distinctly legal about legal reasoning. And critical race theories that suggest that laws are passed to oppress minorities, or feminist theories that suggest the feminist methods we talked about, right? We've got a bunch of feminist legal methods. You should know what all of those feminist legal methods are. You should know about offender variables versus situational variables in policing also, right? So offender variables mean who is the offender? Is it different if a white college professor breaks the law versus if a black gangbanger breaks the law? Also situational variables. Is it different if I get pulled over and I don't have a gun on me versus if I do have a gun on me? How might police respond differently with those types of variables? If you recall in the lawyer lecture, there was a slide that kept popping up, right? Over and over again, in terms of education, professional organizations, professional socialization, established training schools. You need to know the details about all of those different categories that make lawyering a profession, right? And what that means. Market control also is one of those. Where are law students typically from? What kind of work do people from certain law schools go into, and why is that structure present in that manner? And that is pretty much the entire exam. So I'm going to open it up to you guys. What questions do you guys have for me?
Can we go over the different types of discretion real quick?
Sure. You want me to pull it up on the screen for you? All right, for those of you on Zoom, I'm going to share my screen. You're welcome for being a giver. So we'll begin while the magic machine is turning on. We're going to start with talking about discretion as judgment, all right? So discretion as judgment means discretion that's opposite of routine. This brings your knowledge, skills, and insight to bear in unpredictable ways and also may adapt to local circumstances. So for example, you may have to make a judgment call. If you see a string of break-ins by the same street gang and there's another break-in, you could say, okay, we're going to treat this crime scene as a completely brand new crime scene that is completely outside the norm of all reality, right? Or you can use your judgment and say, I know this area, I've investigated 3 very similar burglaries. I'm going to investigate that street gang again. This is where also as judgment, right? For those of you, have you ever looked at your GPS and been like, I'm not going that way? because you know that one of the lights takes too long, or you know that there's heavy traffic around a certain time because there's, you know, a new CrossFit gym that everyone's going through or something, right? That's kind of what judgment is. Using these local rules or these local circumstances, right, and adapting to that in some sort of capacity. There's discretion as choice. This is making personal contributions or judgment calls or following your conscience here, right? This is where you might say, all right, I can choose between two competing things to investigate, for example, right? Yes, I have you pulled over and I'm pretty sure you're drunk, but I just heard a phone call that there's shots fired across the street. I'm going to leave the drunk driver to go deal with the active shooter situation that's happening, right? I'm choosing which functions I'm going to support. There's discretion as discernment. This is not just making safe choices, but it's making good, virtuous choices. So if I get called to Publix as a police officer because a 12-year-old kid is stealing Skittles, I can throw the kid in the back of the car and take him off to juvie, or I can pay for his Skittles and then say, hey, why are you stealing Skittles? Do you have some problem at home that we can potentially help you with? Why don't I buy you groceries to take home so you can help your family, right? That's discernment. There's discretion as liberty. This is permission to act as a free and equal agent, right? So police officers have the liberty to decide, am I going to look for speeders? If I'm a traffic cop, am I going to look for people speeding? Am I going to look for DUIs? Am I going to look for people running a stop sign, right? What is the priority of my traffic job today? There's discretion as license, which is the opposite of standard expectations. And this is the privilege to go against the rules, right? So I'm in a car chase with a bunch of other police officers. I see the guy is going north on US 1. I think he's probably going to try and get over the Volano Bridge. So I cut off a US 1 and take the back roads and try and cut him off before he gets to the bridge, right? That's opposite of standard expectations to stay in a car chase. Discretion, though, is not doing whatever you want to do, right? There are still norms that are bounding this discretion. It is still expected that if you are a traffic cop, you are doing traffic work in some capacity, not saying, I want to go investigate this homicide. You're not a detective. Your job is not to go investigate, right? You still have some sort of norms of expectation for what you're doing in that capacity, right? If the police, right, are hired as security around football games, if the Jags are playing and I'm supposed to be working the street that day, I can't go say, I'm going to go help out security so I can watch the Jags game. That's not how it works, right? So that's basically the different types of discretion. You have more questions about that?
No, I feel pretty good.
Okay. Other questions? Are there other topics in other slides? I'm going to stop sharing my screen on Zoom that you guys want me to pull up. I'm happy to do so.
Is there specific sections in the textbook that we should focus on?
I mean, there's not that many readings. And so I would just make sure you have a good grasp of all of them, right?
Okay.
So for example, when we talk about feminist legal theories, know the basic idea of what happened in the Harris forklift systems, and know this idea of reasonable person versus reasonable woman, and this kind of debate in the EEOC versus Sears, right? The basic idea of commission sales. What was the issue there? The issue was, well, everything that was being sold on commission had high markups on them, but it was all stuff that was just kind of more interesting to men. And so the structure, the pay gap structure, was kind of a structural discrimination present there between the genders because there were other high margin items that could have been sold on commission, but Sears just should not have sold on commission, right? And so those are the kinds of, basic broad strokes ideas from the readings that.
Okay, and just the readings that were after
The midterm.
Yep. Okay.
Yep, so Man from the Country and Kafka are no more with us. They have left us forever, which I know upsets everybody. What else? Is there anything else? I'm assuming the fact that only 3 of you showed up means you're the 3 most motivated students, which means you guys have probably already started studying also. And so probably your comrades that are watching this at home, maybe not even live, maybe watching this 3 or 4 days from now, are the ones saying, oh, I wish I went to the review. You should have been here.
I feel pretty good about studying your slides and looking over the reading, and having pretty good grasp.
I mean, I'm not gonna make you guys stay here for 45 minutes if you don't need to. So if you guys are happy, I'm happy.
I just have one question. So why do you have to, I don't know, obviously it doesn't matter, but I'm just curious. Why do you have the exam until you can't go back to the question? I just always wondered.
So it's one of the ways in which I try and stop people from doing the exams together, basically.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if it was that or if it's like to limit like second guessing yourself really. Like, I don't know.
No, it's basically just so that like,
Okay.
if you're sitting around in a group of 4, you're not jumping around all over the exam trying to find the same questions.
Okay.
I do have a question about a reading that is not on the exam.
Go ahead.
Just a personal question. The
Let's do it.
Cheyenne Way, which is like the second reading
Right,
we did, I was just so confused.
Shy Away, right? Indian tribe.
Yes, I know that, but I just had the first story where the guy is exiled and then comes back and then he smokes so much that the smoke comes out of his butt, and then his friend goes and hangs himself in the pole. I don't understand why anything was happening.
So what's being kind of portrayed or suggested in that reading is that, remember how in primitive legal societies you are one with the law as opposed to one before the law, right? And so the basic idea here is that this guy committed a horrific crime, right? He was exiled. But then still, the elders and everyone else said, for the sake of the tribe, for the sake of unity, for the sake of everything, we should bring him back and try and restore him to our system, because in these primitive legal societies, courts are temporary, there's a lot more intimate understanding of each other's backstories. And so did he do something bad? Absolutely. Has he been sufficiently punished? Probably. Let's integrate him back in, because we have these individualized kind of understandings of nuances of each other, right? Whereas in our kind of current legal system, where you are one before the state, right? We now no longer really care about nuance. We love one size fits all. We like everyone to feel like they're treated fairly. But what that means is, in treating everyone fairly, doesn't it discount struggles, nuance, situations that are present, right? And so the basic idea behind the reading, I'd have to go back and I always read the readings right before I come teach, just to make sure. I don't 100% recall who ends up hanging themselves and
Well, his brother-in-law is like, I can't come to the celebration to welcome back to the tribe, so I'm going to go set up a pole in the woods and hang myself by my chest to the pole for like 3 days, and then I'll be done.
oh, because I think it was, if I'm not mistaken, the brother-in-law, was the brother-in-law the victim or the brother-in-law?
And that's the thing I didn't understand. I didn't quite understand how the brother-in-law was connected.
I think what it was, if I recall correctly, is that it's the brother-in-law of the victim who's also kind of making amends to the victim by saying, I'm not diminishing what you went through. I'm not, by welcoming him back into the tribe, I'm not discounting the fact that you are dead. I want you to know that I'm going to suffer in a way to show you that I still care about you and respect you, but for the sake of tribe unity also. So, because it's individual versus collective, this idea, right? Yes, I'm mad that you're dead, and I'm so sorry you're dead. I'm going to suffer in the fact that you're dead, but I'm also going to do what's best for the collective by reintegrating this person back into society, which presumably, right, is something that we should be doing in our society in general, but something that we do a very, very poor job. So that's that in a quick and dirty explanation.
I mean, this isn't all for you yet, but I had
Yeah.
come back today.
Other questions? Other concerns? Everyone's happy, feels good about it? Obviously, if you need me, please feel free to reach out. I will be available at any point. And as always, if there's any questions that you feel are unfair, feel free to email me and let me know that. There was in one class, I can't remember which class it was, I did bubble in, or not bubble in, I selected the wrong correct answer. And so people got points back for that. After that, may have been a theory. Also, as a reminder, and I'll post an announcement on this, course evaluations did open today. 85% of the class does course evaluations, all classes. So please feel free to write the good, bad, and the ugly in those course emails, and yeah, go from there. All right. All right, well, thank you all. I'm going to end the Zoom session now. And for the last time this semester in person, go Gators, go Jesus, go America, and go Save.